Today we're reviewing Crochet Collage Garden by Chris Norrington, published by David Charles. Let's get to it. One of the first things you notice about this book, Crochet Collage Garden, is its format. Look how portable it is. It should fit into any bag really, unless you're wearing a tiny purse. And this is a major difference with some of other publications by David Charles. Pokemon Crochet 2, for example, you can see how different in size they are. Granted, these two books are targeted at different audiences. So this book, if you look at it, how it's printed, this is more a book targeted at adults, I would think. You could give it to a teenager. I've looked at the patterns. They're actually quite straightforward. Not for absolute beginners, but there are a few tricks that you can use to kind of start with your going in around patterns in this book. So it's quite easy to use for beginners as well, but it's targeted at adults. However, I would be happy to give this book to a 10-year-old who's keen on crochet, and if they are into flowers, then here you go. So let's go into the book and see what kind of treasures are hiding inside. So right off the bat, the book consists of 10 collages. So rather than going by 4 seasons, the author and the editors went for 10 different collages, which I think is a great idea. And if you go to the side of the book, like so, I hope you can see this. See the spine here? You can see the colors. Each collage is done by color. So if you're in the mood for something, let's say blue, okay, I'm gonna go with the blue. You can see the setup. And we're in Midwinter Magic collage. So I'm gonna go to the front here so you can see the whole spread is in kind of cool blue. Now if you're feeling more, let's say spring and summer, I'm feeling pink today, so I'm gonna go for pink. There we go, we have the motifs and it's all nicely matching. Midsummer Daydream, here you go, beautiful. So I really like that feature that all the 10 collages have different colors and you can really kind of go with the color you feel like doing on the day. Here we have the darker color. I bet it's autumn. Let's see. Here we have. Oh, here you go. Autumn wreath. Lovely. So you can see what I mean. So you have 10 collages. Now each of the collages, now we're going to go into the very first one, which is something with a forest. Let's see. Woodland Glade. That's how it's called. Here you go. That's our Woodland Glade. So each collage, including this one, has 10 patterns. So it's 10 by 10, so you have 100 patterns all together across the whole book. And you can see you have a number next to each of the motifs on the pages. And notice it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they are spread in an arrangement and the numbers are next to the, so we have 2 here, for example, with this flower, because that is number 2 on the next page. Here we have the pattern. So as you see, there is a spread of usually 4 or 3 or 5 patterns, depending on how big and long they are, across the pages. So we have columns of patterns, and you have a number with what yarn has been used, what type of hook, and there's a very helpful diagram next to each of the pattern. And the fun bit is, again, and that's attention to the details in terms of publishing this book. I really like how the editors worked on that as well, because you have the color matching the flower. So the diagram is color coded with the flower it makes. So here you put the same. See, this is the flower that we're making. So if I go randomly through the book, I bet I'll see exactly the same. So I'm just going to open randomly. So where we are, here we go. I've got a diagram here, and this is the pattern, the flower that the pattern corresponds to. So here we have these kind of dark green stems, purple buds, and this is the picture it corresponds to. So you can see how lovely it is that the diagram actually matches the colors in the photos. So it's very helpful in terms of making those flowers and combining them together. So we have 10 collages, so that's a very kind of straightforward structure. We have it all color coded. And here I'm going just at the beginning, we've got an instructions, lots of photography across this book. At the beginning you have tools and materials. And this is one of the bits I'd like you to draw your attention to. I found it very helpful. You have sizes of hooks and types of yarns used. And you can right away see a difference in sizes between the motifs as you go. So if you're a fan of chunky crochet like me, I know I will go for my chunky Aran yarns and I will use big hooks, and this is the size of petals I will produce. So my wreath, for example, if I decide to make a collage wreath or an arrangement on, let's say, a wooden stick, and I'll stick some flowers on it, I won't need that many of those because they will be quite big and effective. So it helps you to plan ahead as well. So that's wonderful. Now, one of the interesting bits about this book, it's not only flowers and plants. There are, actually, I think there are 3 or 4 interesting patterns that are not flowers in here. And these are your vases. So this is one of the first ones. We have embroidery here as well, and there are instructions at the back of the book how to embroider these flowers and how to do your embroidery. So if you've never done embroidery, this is something worth trying, and this book helps you to do it. We have another vase in the vintage blue bouquet collage. This is lovely. I really like the blue and white together. And we have a decorative jug pattern right here in a poppy posy pattern. So that's another interesting pattern that you can use not only in flower arrangement collages, but you could use it as a applique and in other work. I also found a mushroom, or rather 2 mushrooms, in Autumn Wreath, so I've liked it really very much. And initially I thought these were cherries, so I thought, ha, found some fruits. However, as you see, I have a question mark here because I went into the pattern and I've checked, are these really cherries? Because to me they looked like cherries. And I've learned from the pattern that these are actually apples, because it says exactly here, first apple, second apple. So these are tiny autumnal apples. And here we come to a point, sort of a bone that I have to pick with this book. If you look, I'm going to open it randomly here. If you look at the top of each pattern, you have your numbers, you have your yarn, your hook, and no name for the flower. Or here, or here, or here. No flower names or plant names across the book. So for someone who likes names like me, that is a frustrating bit. I want to know, what flower am I making? Is this a daffodil? Is this a tulip? Is this a... I don't know all the flower names here, but you know what I mean. Is it a forget-me-not? Maybe a little bluebell? I want to be able to name those flowers, because if they were named, and let's say we had an index at the back with the names, the botanical names of flowers, if you were aiming to make a particular arrangement of crochet flowers, then it would be easier for you to look for it. So I'm very much hoping that in a future edition of this book, we will see some names at the top next to the patterns. And in the meantime, I'll be penciling them in as I go, because that's the only solution. Please let me know in the comments down below if you find this frustrating, or maybe you don't just mind and it's fine with you, which is perfectly okay. I just found this an kind of useful thing to tell you ahead if you haven't bought this book yet. And if you're great at botanical names of flowers, please pencil them in and send me a copy, because I really want to know all the names. Another interesting bit in this book is, you can see it right here actually, is a helpful bit box. So every now and then across those patterns, you will see a little helpful tip which tells you, for example, how to weave in ends, or maybe directs you to another technique at the back of the book that you can use, or an alternative way to do something in the pattern and help you. So here's another one. I think I marked it here for you. Oh, here you go. So they kind of pop in those little boxes across the book, and they are very useful things to have if you want to make this pattern in a different way, or you have issues with sewing the ends. These are helpful. Now at the very back, you have your section on helpful techniques, of course, and look at these photography. I mean, photos are great in this book, really beautiful. This book, that's an important bit, uses UK terminology. So you have your comparison of terms, but all the patterns in this book are written with UK terms. So you need to remember it as you keep working through your patterns. Again, helpful techniques spread, your embroidery stitches, which I mentioned already, and here some other techniques how to attach bits and bobs in collages. And this is really useful bit, I think, ideas how to use the motifs. So there's tons of ideas how you could use those motifs, and I will make a video testing some of those patterns later on, so I will give you some bits of advice how to use them as well. But here the author gives us already some inspiration, you know, what you can do with those motifs as you go. You don't have to make just a collage, you don't have to put it in a vase if you don't want to. There's many things you can do, and as you go on through this book and read it and explore it, you'll be able to find out. So I'll leave this as a little surprise for those of you who decide to buy the book. As you can see, it's really beautiful. I love that cottage garden as well. The colors are very vibrant. You have a selection of various yarns. You can see a little bit fuzzy yarns here as well. So lovely patterns. And if you look at them closely, if you're a crocheter, some of these patterns are really straightforward, and things like this, like those little fern stamps. I intend to make one of these for my beginner crochet class, because these are actually very straightforward. You only need a chain stitch and a slip stitch, and that's it, and you go. And you can make several of these, and just brilliant. So out of all the things I want to tell you about this book, I think this is about it. So please subscribe, and see you next time.